At the end of year party, my department head stood up, glass in hand, and announced, "Let's all toast to the girl who thinks being nice is a personality. Bless her heart, she'll never get out of middle management." Everyone laughed as he added, "Maybe if you grew a spine, you'd get somewhere." I raised my glass, smiled, and slipped out, straight into a higher role at a competitor, taking half his staff with me. I used to think working hard and being nice were enough to build a career. I'm not flashy. I don't play office politics. I don't interrupt people, I don't steal ideas, and I don't kiss up. I treat people with respect and give them room to grow. But that doesn't get you far when your boss is someone like Greg Pruitt. This happened in Raleigh, North Carolina, at a mid-sized tech company I'd been at for almost 7 years. I worked in HR, specifically managing internal operations and team development. I knew everybody's birthdays, helped resolve conflict quietly, trained the new hires, and built solid teams. People liked working with me. Greg didn't. He came in 2 years ago after a reshuffle at the top. He was hired from some consulting firm in Chicago and walked in like he owned the place. Loud. Arrogant. He called himself a fixer. Said our company had too much dead weight. That meant people who weren't constantly talking over others in meetings or posting articles on LinkedIn about leadership. He zeroed in on me early. "You're too soft," he told me one day in his office. "This company is never going to take you seriously unless you stop trying to be liked." "I'm not trying to be liked," I said. "I'm trying to be fair." He laughed. "Fair? No one gets promoted for fair. They get promoted for taking space. Make people uncomfortable. That's how you move up." That was Greg's entire philosophy, dominate or disappear. I kept my head down. I didn't react when he interrupted me in front of other directors. I didn't flinch when he rolled his eyes during my presentations. I just did my job. Helped my team. Stayed consistent. I thought that would be enough. Then came the incident that changed everything. Beth was one of the people I hired fresh out of grad school. She was sharp. Dedicated. The kind of person who triple-checks her numbers and stays late without being asked. She looked up to me. I was proud of her. One day in a leadership meeting, Beth presented a new reporting structure. It was solid. Clean. She'd been working on it for 2 weeks. Everyone seemed impressed, until Greg leaned back in his chair, stared right at her chest, and said, "Well, Beth, I can see where you're carrying all that ambition." The room went silent. Someone coughed. A few chuckled nervously. Beth flushed red. She tried to keep going, but her voice cracked. Afterward, she came to my office shaking. She kept saying, "I don't want to cause trouble. I just want to do my job." I told her I'd handle it. I went to HR, the higher-ups. I filed a formal complaint. I had 2 witnesses. It was clear-cut. They gave Greg a verbal warning. That was it. 2 days later, I heard him joking about it with another manager, "Can't even look at someone now without getting dragged into HR." That was the moment I knew, this place wasn't going to change. But I could. I'd gotten recruiter messages before. I usually ignored them. But that week, one caught my eye. It was from a company in Charlotte. A larger firm. They wanted someone to lead their people operations team. Someone who could handle growth without being a tyrant. The message ended with, "We're looking for calm strength." Your name came up more than once. I replied. I took a Friday off and drove down. Met the COO. Talked to their VP of culture. I was upfront. I told them I didn't scream in meetings. I didn't call people out to show dominance. I wasn't a loud leader, but I got results. 2 weeks later, they made me an offer. A real offer. Better pay. Full authority. A seat at the executive table. I didn't say yes right away. I waited. I wanted the timing to matter. Then came the end-of-year party. Hosted at a fancy rooftop bar downtown. Open bar, catered hors d'oeuvres, music, fake laughter. Greg was already tipsy by the time I arrived. Glass of wine in one hand, other hand slapping backs and bragging about Q4 numbers he barely contributed to. At one point, right after a round of toasts, Greg stood up and clinked his glass. "I want to make a special toast," he said, voice slurring just a little. Everyone turned. He raised his glass toward me. "To the girl who thinks being nice is a personality trait." A few people chuckled. Some froze. He smiled wider. "Bless her heart. She'll never get out of middle management." The laughter got louder. Then he added, "Maybe if you grew a spine, you'd get somewhere." I looked at him. I looked around the room. Saw my team, silent. Eyes on the floor. I stood up. Raised my glass. "To Greg," I said calmly, "for showing us all what real leadership looks like when you mix it with cheap wine and zero self-awareness." Some laughter. Nervous. Real. I took a sip. Set the glass down. And I walked out. That was the last time I stepped foot in that building. The next day, I gave my notice. Quietly. 2 weeks later, I started in Charlotte. New office. New team. New respect. But I wasn't done. I reached out, carefully, to the people I trusted back in Raleigh. I didn't poach. I just told the truth. "We're hiring. You deserve better. Think about it." Within 2 months, 4 of my old team members joined me. By the end of March, 2 more followed. Beth was one of them. Greg didn't take it well. I didn't expect him to. By April, I started getting messages from friends who were still there. Things were unraveling fast. The projects I used to oversee were delayed. Deadlines missed. Greg tried to take over, but he didn't know the details. He never paid attention to the little things, just barked orders and blamed people when they fell through. He called emergency meetings, demanded long reports, started CCing executives on every little email. Then came the first big twist. He tried to block my former teammates from leaving. He told one of them, Mason, a quiet guy who used to run our data dashboard, that if he left, he'd be burning bridges. Said he'd make sure Mason's name got around, that loyalty matters in the industry. Mason called me that night. "I don't know what to do," he said. "I don't want to ruin my career over this." I told him the truth. "Greg doesn't own your reputation. You do." Mason quit the next morning. He joined me in Charlotte 2 weeks later. And then Greg did something stupid. He tried to make Beth the scapegoat. After she left, he sent out an internal email, copied to the executive team, saying how her lack of professionalism and emotional fragility had hurt project continuity. He claimed he was reluctant to let her go, but had no choice given her performance. Only problem? She had every performance review, every commendation, and every positive feedback email saved. And she sent all of it to HR before she left. That email got forwarded. And forwarded again. A month later, the HR director in Raleigh quietly stepped down. I found out from a source inside that she didn't want to clean up Greg's mess anymore. Meanwhile, things in Charlotte were growing fast. My new team was small but tight. We built policies that made sense. We listened. We made the kind of changes Greg would have mocked as soft. And yet, productivity was higher. Turnover was lower. Our numbers didn't lie. One day in May, I was sitting in a strategy meeting when the COO leaned over and whispered, "Your old boss applied here last week. Didn't even make it past the phone screen." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I nodded and said, "Thanks for letting me know." But it wasn't over yet. Because Greg wasn't done trying to take me down. He just got quieter about it. By June, the rumor started. Not just office gossip. Real whispers, showing up in emails, industry Slack channels, even on LinkedIn. Someone was spreading the idea that I'd left Raleigh under questionable circumstances. That I'd pressured staff to follow me. That I'd abused internal data access to target people for recruitment. I got a heads up from an old colleague still stuck at the Raleigh office. "You didn't hear this from me," he wrote, "but Greg's telling anyone who'll listen that you stole company info to poach people." I sat at my desk, staring at the screen. Because now it wasn't just childish. It was serious. I didn't panic. I documented everything. Every message I'd sent. Every exit interview. Every offer letter on file with Charlotte's HR. All above board. No data taken. No systems accessed. I was clean. But Greg wasn't just trying to win. He was trying to ruin me. That's when I called Melanie, a former coworker who'd worked in compliance. She was one of the smartest, most methodical people I knew, and she'd recently gone freelance doing HR audits and investigations. I explained what was going on. Told her everything. She said, "Let me look into it." 3 days later, she called me back. "You're not going to like this," she said. "Greg's been reaching out to people under your name. Using a burner Gmail account. Pretending it's you. Offering off-the-record jobs. Trying to bait people into saying you recruited them improperly." I sat in silence for a moment. "He's impersonating me?" I asked. "Not just that," she said. "He's sloppy." I traced it back to his home IP address. It's him. I had evidence. Real, hard, cold evidence. And now, I had a choice. I could take it to legal. Or I could do something else. Something quieter. Something that would burn slower, deeper, and leave him exactly where he deserved to be. I thought long and hard about what to do. I could have taken the email straight to legal. Could have dragged Greg into court, watched him sweat under depositions. But that's not the road I chose. Not yet. Because this wasn't just about him being a petty man. This was about every time he humiliated someone in front of a room just to feel big. Every whispered joke. Every career he stalled. Every woman he made feel small and every man he bullied into silence. So I started quietly making calls. First, to HR at his company's parent firm, the one based out of New York. I didn't come in guns blazing. I just said, "You might want to take a look at this behavior coming from one of your department heads. I've got emails, timestamps, IP traces. I'm not looking for money. I just want the truth to land where it needs to." Then I sent over a summary packet, just the facts. Nothing emotional. Dates, screenshots, logs. It took 2 weeks before I got a reply. A short one. "We're investigating. Thank you for bringing this to our attention." But that wasn't all. I had one more piece to play. A local industry event was coming up in Raleigh, a mid-level conference, but still public enough. I was invited as a panelist. Greg was scheduled as a speaker. I almost declined. Then I realized, no. This is the full circle moment. The same city. Some of the same faces. But now I was coming back not as the nice girl in middle management, but as the VP of People Operations for one of the fastest growing firms in the state. I showed up that day in a simple black dress. No flash. Just calm. Greg saw me during the mixer hour and froze. He tried to act cool, but his hands were shaking. I gave him a small nod. Then I went up on stage for the panel. The moderator asked me, "What's the biggest mistake companies make when promoting leaders?" I didn't even pause. "Confusing volume with value," I said. "Too many companies reward whoever talks the loudest. They think authority is the same as wisdom. But real leadership doesn't humiliate people in public. It doesn't steal credit or push others down. It lifts. It listens. There was a quiet moment in the room. Then a few people clapped. And more followed. Greg left early. Didn't stay for the Q&A. A week later, it hit the press. Regional director under investigation for misconduct and fraudulent communication. It wasn't just the impersonation. Turns out Greg had falsified internal performance reports to justify demotions, mostly women. He'd been cooking the numbers to show improvement under his lead. HR opened a full investigation. By the end of the month, he was gone. Quietly. No party. No statement. Just a locked office and his name taken off the door. But the fallout didn't stop there. I got a message from one of my newer employees. Someone Greg had once denied a raise and called too soft to lead. She wrote, "I watched what you did. I saw how you moved without screaming. I just got promoted today. Because I kept going. Just like you." And that's when it hit me. I'd made mistakes too. I stayed too long in a place that didn't value people like me. I gave second chances when I shouldn't have. I believed being liked would be enough. But I learned. Greg thought being feared would protect him. It didn't. Because fear burns fast and leaves nothing behind. But respect? Respect builds. And when it's time to strike? Respect hits harder than any scream ever could.